Okay.
Okay, we're back. We finished round 5 yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
and today is a rest day, so we can relax.
Yeah.
Just over halfway through the tournament, and chess is really tiring. Like even like one game in a day, it takes a lot of energy out of you. But I think we're both doing well so far.
Yeah.
I'm tied for first place, 4.5 out of 5. Next round is tomorrow. I'm on board 1, playing the top seed. So hopefully I can continue the non-losing streak.
Yeah, you'll be playing the one of the two GMs that are here.
Yeah,
So it'll be a tough fight.
that's right. And it's unfortunate that there's not 3 GMs, so there's no possibility of a GM norm.
Right.
But can't ask for that much.
Yeah.
So I guess we can start with my game from yesterday. It was another London game, and like every time I play the London, I'm super paranoid that my opponents will be preparing for me. But yet again, my opponent started thinking after move 1, which was nice.
So going into this round, you were on 3.5 out of 4, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I had just drawn you the
Right.
previous day, so I had another white,
Mm-hmm.
and the third time playing the London this tournament.
Wow.
And yeah, I was actually expecting my opponent to play e6 on move 1, but okay, he played a bit differently, c5, and yeah, he was taking his time in the opening, and then especially after my next move in this position, he took a decent amount of time and then mishandled the position. This is actually one of the lines which inspired me to play the London, this move here, knight to c3, which
Whoa.
you don't see too often in London, where usually your pawn wants to go to c3.
Mm-hmm.
I remember discovering this like a few years ago, just like having Stockfish running in the background. And knight c3, if I'm not mistaken, is the top Stockfish move. And it's pretty rare. Like most players will play c3. I think there was some Nakamura Kopsky games, they went into like these main lines with c3. But knight c3 is really interesting because there's really 2 ideas. One idea is to play pawn d5, and another potential idea is to play knight b5.
Right.
And there's a pretty venomous trap in this position. I've had a lot of bullet games online where black plays d5, and then knight b5 just wins on the spot.
Yeah.
I actually had this over the board once against Ashwin Jairam, who's also a London player, but he wasn't familiar with this
Forgot
line.
about it. Yeah.
It was just like a casual blitz game, but still, I mean, it's useful to know. So already, like, black has some issues to solve, and I think a lot of players don't find the right response here. Black should take, and then after take, bishop b4 is the best line for black. And it's still playable for white, like bishop d3, castle, and it's a game. I would not have minded this if we went down this path. But I think he played just a dubious move here. He played a6, allowing d5, which I think just gives white a really nice position. d5, take, and now I have control over the d5 square, ready to play bishop c4. I was actually surprised like how much I got from early on, given that I just have like this one square controlled. But after d6, I just continue development, bishop to c4. And the nice thing is that he can't really play b5 because then I take on f6 and play bishop d5. So he had to do something a bit different. He played knight take d5, bishop take d5, and then bishop e7, so he was just trying to complete development. And at this point, I was really happy with my next move. And after I played my next move, he took about half hour, maybe a bit more than half hour.
Wow.
And I just then got a huge time advantage. I think this is a good kind of positional exercise or more strategical exercise, which you don't usually see in Tactics Trainer. Like the move I play here isn't a tactic. It's just a very strong idea and facilitates some potential attack.
Is it just castles?
That's what I was going to play initially. I don't think he would think for half hour
Right.
castle.
Yeah,
The idea for white is to try and like clamp down on black and prevent black from completing development. Like it's clear here, he wants to castle, develop the light squared bishop, and just try and get some playable middle game position. So I played a move here, which I thought it's a move that you often see in Bullet, where you just kind of play hoping it works. But I thought, like, even in a classical game, this move is very strong. The move is pawn h4, which looks a bit random at first, but the simple idea, I just want to play knight g5. And there's some nice lines, like if he were to castle here, I would play knight g5, and all of a sudden there's threats of queen h5,
Right.
which is devastating. And there's a nice line if h6. I'm pretty sure, I haven't checked this with the engine, but I'm pretty sure queen d3 is just winning. Like, how does he defend mate? He can't play g6 because queen takes g6.
Right.
And if he takes the knight, okay, chess base seized, but if he takes with pawn, I take back and h-file opens.
Yeah.
You can't really stop mate on h7.
That's pretty serious. I'm guessing he would have to take on g5 with the bishop, but
then I take back with pawn, and it's this hook, and life would be good. And queen g6 threat's still happening.
Yeah.
So I had seen this when I played h4 and realized there's so much potential with targeting both h7 and f7 and bringing the queen in. So
right.
Yeah, so I don't think he can castle here.
Wait, but he has knight b4, right, in that line after bishop g5.
So queen d3 and then bishop take g5.
Yeah.
Take knight b4. Yeah, maybe this is possible. Can I play queen? Queen g6 is too slow.
Yeah.
Still feel like white should maintain some advantage here. Maybe queen b3. Just because I'm ready to castle and continue castle queenside and continue attacking on the king side.
Right.
Maybe he gets some initiative, like take bishop e6.
Yeah, I imagine he has to just give pawns and just get his pieces out if he's going to survive.
Yeah, I mean this combination of rook on h1 and pawn on g5 should be very strong.
Yeah, but clearly castles is way too dangerous for black.
Yeah. So that's why he was taking so long. Like, what to do for black? I still want to play knight g5 as well, and just target f7. A move like bishop e6 doesn't really help because I can probably just take and then knight g5. So I was expecting bishop g4 here.
Sure.
After which I would just play like c3 and queen c2. And I thought then his bishop could be a target later on. So he surprised me with his next move here. I took some time after he played his next move, queen c7, because it just seemed pointless. And he just seemed to be asking for knight g5, and I really didn't see the purpose of...
Very slow.
Yeah. I thought maybe for a moment that he had some idea of playing knight d8, which didn't happen in the game. But okay, I go for knight g5.
Yeah.
I think already white's advantage is very big. And actually I realized if he plays knight d8, defending f7, I can start targeting d6. I can play knight e4 here. It's another advantage to knight g5. There's just all these potential targets in the position.
Yeah.
So he played bishop take g5, which is kind of a sad move, giving up the bishop pair, allowing the h-file to open. And I thought around here I would win the game pretty quickly, but it took like 2 more hours to win the position from here. But I think I was in control the whole time. Knight e5. I give up the bishop pair just to get a good position. Yeah.
That's a really interesting decision.
Well, I just saw that I put my queen on f3, and black has no moves here. Like, black has like almost nothing to do. Like, his bishop's stuck. He can't castle.
Yeah, this is the famous Botvinnik bishop. Have you seen any of those games where in the Nimzo he just like plants the bishop on d5?
I have not. I'm terrible with chess history.
I'll show you. Maybe we can we'll include a link in the
sounds good
in the comments or something to like chess games.
Right.
There are a couple of famous games he just plays like c4, e4, and the bishop is just a rock, and it like outplays knight, outplays light square bishop.
Nice.
Yeah, this seems like a classic example. And you have the h-file.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like he's like there's all these things that he's tied down to, like the b7 pawn, f7 pawn, h7 pawn, and he has no way to really fix anything. So I was feeling really good around here. But he put up resistance. I think he did what he kind of had to do, is play bishop e6 and make some concession. And then I took a long time here debating, do I take on b7 or do I take on e6? I'm not sure if I made the right decision.
Wow.
Taking on e6 looks really attractive.
That would be my choice here. And then castles?
So I spent a long time calculating like these concrete variations, trying to find like a clear win, because I wanted to castle. And it just seems amazing for white. Like the rook's on the half open file and open file. Pawn structure for black is terrible, but I didn't see like a clear cut. Maybe I was looking for too much, but I didn't see anything clear cut after rook d8. I calculated take, king take. His queen is tied down to b7, so he has to take with king. Then queen e4, where I'm likely winning h7. I was about to go into this, so I saw this nice trap. If he plays g6, I can just take on g6, and then I take on h8 and win the queen back. But I thought that... What was I thinking? Oh, I thought he could play king c8 here. And then if I take on h7, take. This move queen a5 would be annoying. Threatening mate in 1, threatening the a-pawn. I'm probably still winning. I probably just have c3 and take on g7 and I'm winning.
You can take the g7 pawn with check and then play c3.
Yeah, maybe I should have gone for this. I just saw queen a5 and it looks scary, and the other line I was just winning a pawn. And maybe there's something else. Maybe there's nothing else black can do here to defend. Because queen a5, I just take on b7. Yeah, I probably should have gone for this.
Well, there's h6, but it's just like making more weaknesses.
Yeah, h6.
You can even take
h6 is possible.
Rook h5.
But he can take with rook. Maybe this is what I didn't want to have happen. Let's take.
Queen h4 check.
I win the pawn. Yeah, I was just scared of some queen ending where his queen gets active with queen a5. But I probably could have gone into this and had no issues.
Yeah. Yeah, this feels technical just because these positions are so hard to defend also when you have these weaknesses. I don't know.
I mean, bishop take b7 just seems a lot more simple.
Well, you get the pawn.
I win a pawn, and the positional aspects, like his pawn structure is ruined on the queen side. I still have the pawn in g5. His rook is stuck to defending h7. But it took a lot of effort to win. I don't think I'll give as much commentary in terms of converting this position. We trade queens. I'm trying to point out some moments, but it was just a matter of technique. Castle. He played rook b4, which was an interesting move. He wanted to get counterplay, maybe preparing both c4 and a4, and he also had some threat of rook g4, which is resourceful because my g pawn is a weakness. So I was happy with the move I played here, pawn c4. Sometimes strange to put pawns on light squares with light squared bishops, but I had a cute idea of playing bishop to b5, and then just trapping the rook with king c2 and a3.
Yeah.
So we had to move back, and then I just put the bishop on b5, so I'm limiting any queenside play. Then going forward here, slowly but surely, bishop d7 I thought was nice. And then just a matter of improving, put the rook on h6, rook d5, start targeting some pawns. And then, I should note, so after he had played queen c7, I was up an hour on the clock. I had like an hour and 20 minutes to 20 minutes.
Oh, that's huge.
So at this point, he was already below a minute. It's only moved 26. And I realized that if I just play a waiting move here, it's really hard to find a move for black, because like his pieces are all just kind of stuck. So I just played f3, and he had like 45 seconds to play his next move, and it was just so difficult for black. He might be in some, I don't want to call it zugzwang, but like, okay, the bishop is pinned, his rook on d8, I mean, doesn't want to move because then I can take on c5. So he has to probably just make some concession here. He played king e7, which allowed just some simplification, bishop f5. And then we trade off a bunch of things. trade bishops. I'm still up a pawn. Like, look at his pawn structure. It's just.
And you fix it with e4.
And then I fix everything with e4. My pawn chains are nice. But he's still got some counterplay. Like, he went for the only thing he had is g4.
It's a good move.
Yeah, it's an attempt. I played rook h7 check, king d6. And then when I originally played rook h7, my plan was to play rook g7 here, which I think is also just a nice way to win. Because after take, he's in some sort of zugzwang. Like, the g pawn is going to be lost, so his king has no moves. And then the idea would be to win the e pawn in the end. So this is one way to win. Something very similar happened. I played rook a7. Similar ideas. But
yeah, this structure is so good in rook endgames, like e4, d5 against d5.
Right.
Because black can never defend this pawn if you just attack it. You give a check, you put your rook on e6, and
exactly.
There's no defense.
Yeah, e5 is always a long-term weakness.
Yeah.
I played rook a7 because I was seeing this line. If he takes, I can just trade off rooks into a king pawn ending. And this is just winning for white, past d pawn.
Right.
So he played rook f4, avoiding the rook trade, and okay, we trade some pawns, and I finally get this rook e6 move, so I win the e pawn. And then he went for counterplay, and he actually he made me think. I thought this was going to be an easy win, but he found some interesting resource, pawn c4.
Wow.
Looking back on it, I had everything under control, but during the game, it was a little bit scary, because the idea is that after I take, he plays king d6, and he's attacking my rook, and he just wants to bring his king to c3, and just mate me, like go for some mating attack down 3 pawns in a rook ending. So I had to be a little bit careful. I played rook e6, and the next several moves were just calculated. Realize that I can just start pushing pawns.
Just push by force.
Yeah. But I guess there's a trap here that if I play d7, I'm pretty sure this is a draw. Because king c3. I'm almost getting mated by force. I would have to move the a pawn, like a4, and then after check, king a2, check. I don't think I can avoid the repetition because he has rook e1 here.
Yeah. Your rook is badly placed.
Yeah, so when I saw this, like this is one of the first lines I saw, I was pretty scared. Oh, how did I get out of this? Thankfully, okay, I don't have to play d7. There might be a few different ways to win this, but simplest I found was king c1, just run towards the center. After king c3, king d1, he takes on a2, and now my pawns are too fast. But I can't play d7 because rook d2 checks, so I push my c pawn.
Nice.
And then a4, and then I just win the race. c7. He resigned here. I was expecting him to play on king d3, threatening mate, and then I would just queen.
Yeah.
I get queen c1.
Nice.
So yeah, I think it was a smooth game. Another success with the London, which has worked well for me this tournament. I don't know how many more games I'm going to get to continue playing the London now that they're being broadcast on Chess24, and probably more of my future opponents will realize that. But
they'll fear it.
Yeah, maybe they're afraid. It's hard to prevent the London though. So
right.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Okay. So.
Also, I saw some YouTube comment that someone is asking for like the PGN of the games, at least of my, like one of my other games, and I don't know where I'm gonna like share the PGNs with people. I do want to do that, but for now you can just view them on the broadcast Chess24, which will include links to on the description. And then if people want to view your games, they can check out the Patreon page. Where you'll have much deeper analysis than me.
Yeah, what I've done for all my recent tournaments is, well, people who watch the videos already know this, but I've annotated my games, and I put them up on my Patreon page, where people can follow and also learn about like chess improvement and training and stuff like that. Well, my game yesterday was pretty crazy. The opening was actually really interesting. I know people are wanting to hear about it.
A very trendy line.
Yeah, so I'm playing a 2300 player, FIDE Master Victor Vasiasu, who's a Romanian player, and looking at his games in the database, he didn't have a whole lot of games in this position. But I did know that he's playing the open Sicilian very consistently, and he's typically going for sharp lines like Bishop G5 against the Najdorf. Against the Taimanov Sicilian, which is my main line, he's, from what I saw, has only played the move F4, which is a decent move. It's definitely not the most critical test. But because the round was at, I think, 4 p.m., right?
Mm-hmm.
We had like the whole day to prepare, and Eric and I were joking that he has the whole day to prepare, so he's probably going to prepare something super sharp. In particular, maybe the line with Bishop E3, A6, and Queen F3, which is just currently all the rage in the Taimanov these days. I mean, if there's ever been a serious existential threat to the Taimanov, it's this position. So many games, I mean, high-level battles too. We see Caruana and Karyakin and MVL and Anand. They're all playing these lines. But I mean, it was hard to expect this.
No, before this game, I was joking that I'm going to stop playing the Taimanov because of this line. I had so many bad experiences with this.
Oh, right. Yeah, I mean, it's very dangerous. I think I have one win and one loss, but the difference in strength was pretty clear.
And this is like a new sort of opening, like only the last 3 years, right? It's just dominated, at least Taimanov theory.
Yeah,
and
this usually doesn't happen, just like a line just kind of takes over.
It just comes out of nowhere, basically.
Right.
I remember the first time I ran into this was against Fidel Corrales, and it was like 2015, 2014.
Wow.
It was like I think, like he played it maybe a few months after it was first played in like master level play. And I thought nothing of it, but then it just became so popular.
And it picked up steam very quickly. Now, the ironic thing is that like White's whole idea, we're talking about how sharp the line is just to get a slightly better endgame after knight f6, queen g3, challenging our queen. And after queen takes g3, hg3, gets the open h file, slightly better position, can always go for these plans with like g4, g5, and bother the knight. And I mean, like, I think the endgame is very playable. I don't think black is really all that much worse here, but it is unpleasant.
I've suffered many times. I've played Leslie So in this line online.
Okay.
And like the fact that white has the half open h file and the half open d file, there's all these kind of long term strategies for white, and it's difficult against a strong opponent.
I see. But well, for this reason, black takes great pains to avoid this endgame, and that means just going into a lot of these sharp complications. Okay, but yeah, I wasn't 100% expecting this, because I mean there was no reason to expect it other than he has all day to prepare, so he might go for something super sharp. And judging from the games that I saw, he's a very, very sharp player, always attacking, sacrificing. He's upset, I think, a lot of strong players just because he's, an attacking player by nature. So yeah, I mean, I was even thinking before the game to play a different move on move 1, like e4, e5, just to avoid, all this prep. But then I thought, I should set a good example for my students. Like, if one of your students doesn't play their main line because they're
like true.
afraid of their opponent,
don't be afraid. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm not going to back down from a fight. I mean, it's not like I'm playing MVL or someone. So I went with knight e5 and b5. This is one of the trendier lines nowadays. Black has a lot of other options. I mean, you could simply play d6. I think this line, if anyone wants to know what to do, and you don't need a lot of prep, just play d6, castles, bishop d7, and play kind of typical Scheveningen style with rook c8, b5, bishop e7, knight f6.
Looks simple enough.
Yeah, the one idea you kind of need to know here for black is when white plays queen g3 and puts the pawn on g7, is that you can sacrifice the g7 pawn in many lines. Usually, like knight f6 would be played, something like bishop e2, and then let's say rook c8, white plays f4, and after f4, a lot of times black wants to play h5. So you can help fight for the g4 square, and then now you're ready to play bishop e7 because queen takes always runs into rook g8.
Yeah, this is very thematic.
Yeah, so I think this position is very, very playable, and you don't need like this crazy computer prep. You can rely on your intuition here. But I went with this line. I think it's pretty sharp, and here he went into a think. Oh, so to clear up, he does end up playing this line in the game, and in the game when he played bishop e3, I think he fumbled a little bit, like his hands were shaking.
Oh, really?
And to me, that's a pretty obvious tell. It's like the first time they've played the position, or like one of the first times, because they're not used to just making this move. But yeah, he started thinking here, and the reason he got confused is because typically black starts with knight f6 in this position. Then after white castles, black can play b5. And he was trying to figure out why I played b5 first. If he just castles here, we basically transpose into this line. There's a lot of theory after f4, knight g4, and h5, and these lines get really, really messy. One of the thematic ideas that e5 is typically met with b4. I think
I've seen this, yeah. This is one of the few lines I've studied in queen f3.
Oh, right.
b4 is a really nice counterattack.
Yeah, I mean, if you're allowing the e5 pawn without your pawn on d6, then you have to watch out for this e4 square always. But he thinks a little bit here, and then he plays f4, which is definitely a logical move, but probably not the most challenging. And then after the game, he did tell me that he had prepared this the whole morning, hours and hours, and he just didn't check this line with b5, basically. Okay, f4 hits the knight. I think knight c4 is kind of forced. I have to go forward. And he takes, queen takes, and castles. So already just like super double-edged position.
I saw this position.
Yeah.
I thought like black is just terrible here. Like white's completed with development. You have nothing developed but your queen. You do have the bishop pair there though, but it's still.
Well, you know, I used to like be of the same opinion if I would see this kind of position, but then studying a lot of these lines from white's point of view, where you get this huge development advantage, but black just has this weird counterplay with b4 and bishop b7. And so during the game I realized, like, well, if he doesn't make any threats, then he has a real problem with the e4 square.
That's true.
And yeah, concretely, white just doesn't have anything. We know without the light square bishop, it's hard to blow things open.
That can be frustrating for white when you're like fully developed, but it's like a temporary advantage,
right? And
you can't make use of the temporary advantage. I think he was saying that after the game.
Yeah.
He was just frustrated.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the problem. The initiative kind of fades out. Yeah, it's black to play here, so I could play b4 right away and just take the a2 pawn, but this line is like way too sharp and
looks risky.
I just thought, like, okay, I'm really just only playing with my queen, like, because the attack is not dangerous unless I have like more pieces involved. So I wasn't sure. Yeah, and knight b6 is a big idea. I went bishop b7. I think this is a better move. And yeah, there's just nothing white can do. The problem is the queen is just very annoying. It's hard to disrupt it. Can't play b3. Now I am threatening b4 and just taking on e4, or just playing knight f6. If white plays a move like e5, then I'm in time to play knight e7, and my knight can come to d5 or c6, and it's nicely developed. And I think his queen here just ends up, I mean, not misplaced, but it's a little offsides because it's sitting g7, but g7 is defended, so what to do? He played knight b3. I think this is a very logical move. Try to play knight a5. I went with knight f6, and now if knight a5, my idea is to just take on e4, and the tactics here work out for black. If he takes on c4, I take on g3, and then the rook will be hanging. If he takes on e4, I can take with the queen. He can take on b7, queen takes b7, and he definitely has compensation here for the pawn because I'm underdeveloped. But I think it can be hard for white to really prove this because
your king is safe for the time being. And
yeah,
I would take black here.
Yeah, it's very solid. It's like white has to. Well, there's no clear way for white to win the pawn back. White just has to develop his pieces normally and hope that black can't improve his position. So it's definitely good positional compensation, but I think black is fine. He didn't want to go for that. He played rook d4. forcing me to back up. E5, knight d5, knight takes d5, bishop takes d5. So at this point I was feeling extremely comfortable because my light square bishop is very, very powerful. I can play g6 at any moment to defend the pawn and then develop my bishop, and my king will be safe. Mm-hmm. And I have this plan to play a5, a4 in every position that's extremely annoying. So he takes a very practical decision here and just plays rook takes d5. And I definitely felt like this might be kind of the critical move in the position, but I was surprised by how quickly he played it. He just like effortlessly realized he has to do this.
Well, sometimes it's a type of move you don't necessarily calculate. You just have a feeling that condensation should prove itself.
Yeah, and he's definitely getting rid of my best piece,
right,
and weakening my structure. So he's getting a lot of these strategic advantages. Yeah, so this was a tough position to play. Okay, I inserted a rook c8 just to threaten mate in 1, queen f2, and here I decided to hold on to the pawn with queen b7, which now I've realized is probably too greedy. What I should have done is just develop the bishop, give him one pawn for the exchange, and then just castle.
That looks very reasonable.
Yeah, and I think white has some compensation still for sure, but it's only one pawn. If black's rooks get active, if black is able to play d6 and open some files, then clearly only black will be better, and yeah, I think this was probably the way to go.
That's great. When you're up the exchange and you have like at least one open file, like even the fact that you have the c file, you can potentially triple up and go for like b4 breaks. And,
right.
This looks very fine for black.
Yeah, and white's pieces are good, but they don't have a lot of targets. I think the main idea for white would be to try to play like f5. But
just f6.
In many of these cases, exactly, black can play f6, and everything is very solid. And so this e6 pawn, it rarely feels dangerous.
Just a decoration, probably just a weakness too.
Yeah, exactly. Queen c6, queen c4 is possible, rook e8, and I think white is having a hard time holding on to everything. So yeah, that was definitely the way to go. But okay, I played queen b7, and my idea was to try and lure him to play knight a5 because it looks so tempting, pushing my queen back. But then I'm gonna have a tempo with bishop b4, and I get to castle. So this would be very worth it. Of course, he doesn't play that. He just plays f5, which I think is the best move. And then I was trying to figure out what to do in this position. Only here I realized that actually my bishop has no squares. Like bishop b4, he can just play a3, and I have to go back. And if I put my bishop on e7 at any point, he just plays f6 with tempo. And now this feels way too weakening for black. Like I was considering for a brief moment to just play bishop f8 here. The idea that if he takes, I take and castle.
This just looks wrong though.
Yeah, I mean, I really couldn't bring myself to play this.
Like knight d4, knight f5 potential.
Yeah, first of all this. Second of all, even if he does take and then I take, he can do that and hit my bishop. So not giving me the chance to play g6. And this knight on f5, I mean, it's just so strong. It's hard to...
Knight f5.
Yeah. And queen g3, I mean, his pieces are placed perfectly. I even considered g6 here, which I thought was interesting, just to force him to commit the pawn. And if f6, then the position closes up. But I thought this move would be really annoying, rook f1. So not taking and allowing me to play rook h7, but starting with this move. And I just couldn't find a good move here for black. So yeah, then I realized my position's actually kind of drastic, and I need to do something quite.
So I don't think you realized the danger soon enough. Like you played queen b7, not realizing the difficulty, or really just give back the pawn and castle and enjoy life.
Exactly. How I wish I could go back to this moment and just play bishop e7. Because once I got here, already I'm thinking, do I just play d4 and try to, mess with his coordination? What to do?
No, I think you were too materialistic.
Yeah.
You just got punished for it.
Well, but here I remembered a recent game I had against GM Varga where I sacrificed the exchange with white. And then analyzing that game, I similarly had a knight on b3. I had a lot of good squares. He missed one chance to create counterplay, and that was just to play a5, a4, harassing my knight and creating this. Or actually, I think I had a bishop on b3, but basically creating this counterplay. So I thought of that game, and then I realized, like, oh, I can play a5 here. If he takes, I get the open a file, and otherwise, I'm just getting this counterplay with a4.
Right.
And so I realized this is probably my only move in the position, at least from a practical point of view. I think the computer agrees, actually, so I was quite happy I went for this. Okay, now if he doesn't take the pawn, I'm going to play a4, a3, and make a lot of weaknesses. So he finds the best. He takes queen a8 and queen d2, which is a really strong move because he's defending the knight. Of course, he's not allowing knight b3, queen takes a2, where I'm also threatening queen b3 next move. So white is just in big trouble. But queen d2 holds everything, and he's starting to take on d5. The idea that I don't have time to take on a5 because he takes on d7. So I went for my only move here, bishop c5. But he missed a really nice tactic here. So for the record, I would say queen a8 is actually a mistake here. I should have played queen a6, avoiding the tactic that could have happened in the game. And here we get an unclear position, but I think black is more or less okay here because I've gone into castle, I have these open files. It looks like enough counterplay. The problem here is that after queen d2, I played what I thought was the only move, bishop c5, just to develop. Take. And so the critical move here was definitely queen b4. To which I pretty much have to respond queen c8. And then my idea is that if white spends a tempo defending the pawn, like c3 or rook d2, I castle and I'm okay.
Right.
But white has a very, very strong move here. If you guys want to try and find it, you can pause the video. I know you can see the notation, but maybe...
I haven't looked yet.
Oh, nice.
I saw a potential move. I'm so fixated on this move, I have not checked the notation.
Very good.
Knight b7?
Knight b7.
Yes. I did not cheat.
Nice. Fantastic move. So we both missed this, although I don't know if my opponent considered queen b4 or not.
They're so scared of rook c2, but just king b1 and
right.
Knight d6 is coming.
Now in other lines, I could take on g2 here and I get queen c2 as a threat, but okay, I'm just not in time here. Knight d6 is game over.
Black can't castle. That's a key.
Key
idea.
That's the whole point of putting the queen on b4 is that I can't get out. So after knight b7 takes, black is just lost essentially. I think I have to take the knight, give back the exchange, but I still can't castle. And so this is just horrific position.
I have a question. What if so go back after king b1, queen c6, knight d6, I assume.
Well, there's also f6.
Yeah, your king is so sad. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, this move would just be like, but knight d6. Did you want to just run?
I just wanted to play king f8 and allow any discovery, and then king g8. But f6 is strong.
But there is takes and...
Oh, knight d4.
I guess we have queen c5, so it's not so bad. But yeah, I think just f6.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, this would have been just winning, clearly winning. But he fortunately did not find that. He plays b4, which is a very ambitious move. He's securing the knight and he's kicking the rook out. And he's winning the d5 pawn by force, so rook c7, queen takes d5. And here I feel like I made another good but somewhat difficult decision. My original idea was to play queen c8, rook d2, and castles. But the problem is that if he can just take the b5 pawn, and I don't get enough counterplay, it's just going to be terrible. Now white has a lot more material. Then I can just come back to b3 and c5. He pushes the a pawn, and he's just in complete control. So I realized that I just can't give up the b5 pawn unless I'm really activating all my pieces. So somewhat begrudgingly, I castled, which turns out to be the best move, but it's unfortunate because it allows white to trade queens and get this endgame that's... I think only white is playing for the win here.
Yeah.
Material-wise is now equal. He has knight and 2 pawns for the rook. But his king is really helpful on the queen side. His rook is active. My king is out of the game. My rooks have 1 target on the c file, but it's easily covered. So
And your b5 and d7 pawns are fixed, and rook, he can put the rook on d5. It just seems good for white.
yeah, everything here is in white's favor. But concretely, black does have some resources for counterplay. Okay, he plays king b2, rook a c8. Now I was expecting rook d2, as any natural player would make. But I was okay with this position because I feel like it's hard for him to make immediate progress. For example, if I play a move like king f8, if he tries knight b3, I can go in with my rook. Let's say rook c4 and rook e4, something like this. Start getting counterplay. But the problem is, well, he doesn't play rook d2, he plays c4, which I think is a fantastic move, and I don't want to say I overlooked this during the game, but it is one of those moves where, again, like, okay, if he plays it, he plays it, I'll figure it out then. Otherwise, what choice do I have? I got to put my rooks on the c file. And it's a very, very strong move because he shuts down all of my counterplay, he blockades with his king, and clearly he's going to get 2 connected passers that are going to be really, really strong.
Yeah, that's a nice sack. Yeah,
I think it's a nice idea. Okay, now I realize I just have to get counterplay immediately, so I played rook e8. He takes on c4, which I thought was interesting. My point is that if he plays any kind of rook d5 trying to keep control, I'm just playing f6. And the problem is my rook is going to be able to get in. I don't care about the king side here at all because my king has it under control. And then here I feel like black now has serious counterplay. The c-pawn is running rook a2 check, and this would be very unclear. I think the engine points out that b5 was playable, but it's kind of hard to advance before you're ready to support these pawns, so he didn't want to go for this. He took on c4. Now black has a lot of options, so again I definitely considered f6. But as it turns out, e6 is very strong here. And he's able to just kind of shut me down. For example, I can take, rook takes, king b3, and I don't think I'm really in time here to create counterplay, just because the b pawn runs very quickly. And knight, rook, king, they're all well placed. I mean, basically I'm down a piece, right? King and knight are working together, and I just have the 2 rooks. So I decided to take on e5, which turns out to be a blunder. The best move was rook c8 with the idea of forcing him to play rook d4 and then playing f6. So I saw this line. It's a nice tactical point because if he takes, I have d5 and I win the piece. But well, he can get out of the pin, take on e5, knight e5,
counterplay rook c3.
Exactly. And here black gets
rook
enough.
c2, or
he definitely gets enough play for equality because the king is now less well placed. And I felt like black is probably okay here, but in the game I was just playing for more, or at least more clear counterplay. But objectively, this was the way to go. Because after rook takes e5, I was expecting king b3, and my idea here is simply to bother the knight. I don't really care about the f5 pawn right now. But I challenge the knight. I want to play rook e3 check, rook a2. I would love to play rook a3 check and force his king in front of the 8 pawn, because then he's just in the way. I'll have rook a7 check and all kinds of counterplay ideas. But then he shocked me. So it's white to play. If you guys want a nice puzzle, try to find the strongest move that gives you very clear winning in-game advantage. I don't know if you saw it earlier from the...
I have not cheated.
Nice.
Today. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is rook take d7.
Yeah. Yeah, those forcing moves.
Did you miss that?
Yeah, completely. Just forgot about this idea that his knight is pinned, so...
Deflection.
Because in my mind, I don't care about the d7 pawn.
Right.
I just want to activate my rooks. I'll give all my pawns if I can.
But after you lose it, then you care.
But, well, what I realized is that he simplifies the position. Now, normally, when you're playing an exchange down, you don't want to trade off your rook, because you need this rook. It's a long-range piece, can combine to create threats. And it's in single-piece endgames, like rook versus knight, where the rook is showing the dominance. But he's also getting rid of my counterplay by taking off one of my rooks.
Yeah.
So now my one rook can do very little in the position. If I take on d7, he can just take on e5, of course. And now his knight is ready to come back to c4 or to c6. He pushes b5, and his pawns are just going to be unstoppable. My king is way too far.
I mean, visually this just looks lost for black.
Yeah.
Oh, it's interesting how tricky it is to actually win this for white.
Well, I think this position is almost resignable because he's gaining time. In the game, I chose rook c8 here, which is accurate because, okay, he's going to play rook d8, same idea, but he doesn't get this tempo. And maybe it's not such a big deal, but I like that my rook is a little bit farther.
Sure.
Okay, so I definitely realized I'm losing here, and I'm just trying to create counterplay. I think it's a miracle that I saved the game, to be frank. But I think it's maybe a good lesson for kind of practical defense and also converting the advantage. From my point of view, I'm just trying to make it as hard as possible. The conventional wisdom is to try and use the king to blockade his pawns, and then at the right moment activate the rook and give checks from behind.
Yeah.
If I can take one of his pawns on the king's side, then I can create counterplay, and this would be very important. And there might be even positions where, if by some miracle I'm able to give my rook for both of his pawns, and on the king's side I have an extra pawn or two extra pawns, I have some drawing chances by trading off all the pawns. So these are the miracles that you kind of hope for. Okay, a4. I played king e7, knight c4. So now king d7, knight b6 check. It's a big problem. So start with rook e8. He pushes king d8, just trying to stay out of range of his knight. And okay, here he started spending some time because he realized my rook is coming to e2. So I'm getting counterplay, and he needs to be precise. Of course, we're both in pretty heavy time trouble at this point. It's probably 5 minutes per side, 30-second increment. And what's interesting here is that white is winning simply by force. Had he just pushed the pawns, he played king b4, which is, I think, a very solid move. But had he just pushed the pawns concretely, I'm not in time. So I can try rook e2, b6. Let's say king c8 seems most logical, just getting the king over. a6, king b8, and knight a5. And this is a typical construction.
b7, knight c6, or knight c6, b7.
Yeah, everything with check.
That's rough.
He also has the plan to put the pawn on a7 and then try to bring the knight to c7.
Sure.
Which is going to be similarly winning. And because my rook is on the second rank, this is especially bad because I can't get behind. So in some cases, his king is actually very nice on b3. Instead, what followed was a lot of mistakes. This would be fairly classified as a tragic comedy. Okay, he plays, instead of a5, he plays king b4, which...
Probably just wasting time.
I mean, it's still winning, but it's not the most straightforward. Rook e2, and now g4. Now, during the game, I actually thought this was a good move because, well, I thought, okay, if he just pushes... There are lines where, let's say, black just takes both pawns. The problem is you calculate lines like this, for example. And then this can very easily go wrong for white if the pawns get stuck. So for example, you might think, oh, knight a5 check, king e8, but then what? Like knight c6, there's still no threat.
And your rook is coming back, your h-pawn's going to advance.
Exactly, and here I'm ready to give my rook at any moment.
Right.
Even if I leave him with one pawn that just can't be promoted so quickly, and then run with my h-pawn, and knights are notoriously bad at dealing with the h-pawn. So it's understandable why you wouldn't want to go for a line having not calculated it through. And my opponent, I mean, he's a very strong player, he's very concrete, he's calculating a lot. So he doesn't want to just go for it thinking, yeah, I'll probably be winning. Now in reality, it is winning if white is precise. I think pushing the a-pawn first makes sense, because if I just take on h2, it's immediately losing. a7, rook a2, and he blocks. So game over. I'm forced to play king c8, and he can push. Only move here would be rook g1. If I take the pawn at this point, I think knight a5 is winning. Next move is a7.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, king b8, knight c6 check. And that would have been game over. Nice little mate. Well, okay. So it's understandable why he played g4. Because he didn't want to give his counterplay. Now it's harder for me to make a pass pawn. I keep trying. g6, a5, take, and a6. And here it's a mistake, because after rook a2, his pawns are stuck. If knight a5, we draw by force. Kind of a nice endgame here. King c8 or king c7, a7, I can take. King b7. And it's actually white who has to figure out how to draw this, because his king is not in the square of the pawn. But of course there's the famous ready idea. Maybe it would have been a good puzzle.
Yeah.
But if you guys want to try and figure it out, just gave you a very big hint. But I feel like, I mean, process of elimination. What can you even try here?
Wait, can white go for... Okay, so I see the drawing idea, but can white go for b6? Or is it just too slow?
I'm not sure.
To bring the king to... You needed the king on d6.
Right.
h4, king c5, h3, king d6. That's too slow. I wanted to play a8 and then king c7, but yeah, queen just in time.
But yeah, but just by one tempo.
Yeah.
Right. But if the king was one square closer, you would have this position, you'd be winning.
Right.
Yeah, so here it's because the king is on
so
a5.
white to move and draw.
Yeah, white to move and draw. Pawn up. King and pawn endgame. Two connected passers. Okay, if you guys want more time, you can pause the video. So you have to jettison the pawn. And for anyone who hasn't seen this idea before, I mean, it is pretty remarkable. The point is to combine threats. Now, by going through b6, if the king gets to c7, he's a lot faster. So h5 would be a colossal blunder. White plays king c7 and just queens immediately with check. So black is forced to play king b8. And because of this one tempo, white is now in time to get in the square of the pawn. And this is going to be a draw by force.
What's going on here? Can white still try and win?
No, just concretely, black gets it back in time. Actually, there's one more idea white should kind of know to draw this position. Yeah, because if you go forward, it's risky.
Yes.
But in this case, you can basically just give the pawn. As long as you're taking the opposition when black takes it, of course. Don't forget this one. There have been a lot of situations where white resigns in this position, thinking they're losing the pawn and losing...
Or white just plays king f4 and gives black the opposition. It's tragic.
Exactly. So a6 was a blunder. It blows the win. Of course, I gave him more chances after this.
Okay.
b6 was better because now after rook a2, he can play king b5, and his pawns are not stuck. And so here he's winning. Simply, he's going to queen first. Be knight a5, or actually even I think b7, king c7, knight a5, threatening. Not threatening a7, excuse me, but threatening knight c6, and then b8 queen. Maybe there's a better way. Maybe just knight a5 first is stronger. And white is always queening with check. So a6, rook a2. He plays king c5, which is the best attempt. King c8. I think king c7 was better. Knight d6 check. king b8, takes on f7, h5.
At this point, there's like a big crowd around the game because it's just so confusing for everyone. Like, what's going on? Black has a passed pawn. White has 3 passed pawns.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure what was going on here. I didn't know who was playing for a win here either.
I think, well, I mean, we both felt that, it's White who's the stronger side here. And still definitely is, although objectively, with best play, Black, I think, is holding this. Yeah, it is risky for White, because if the h-pawn runs down the board and I give my rook at the right time for his passed pawn, then he can lose. But he finds the best way. He plays... here he plays king b6. Actually, I think knight e5 was maybe better, but king b6, h4, knight g5. And at first I thought, wait a minute, I have rook g2 here. His knight is so far away. Why can't I just leave my king? But then, of course...
a7, knight e6.
Yeah. Then I realized, oh, his knight is actually in perfect range.
That would be sad.
And then knight c7 check, and mate. Or if I, let's say, plan to give the rook, his king gets to that perfect spot, and
b6, b7.
b6, b7, exactly. Everything with check. So, yeah, rook g2 is a great way to lose the game. If you guys want to pause the video, there's exactly one move that draws for Black. It's a very, it's not a hard move to find, actually. I think it's just a hard move to, let's say, convince yourself to play, because it's basically the last move you'd want to play in the position. Any guesses?
I'm not cheating, but I think I know it. Just h3.
Yeah. I mean, concretely, this is the only way to draw because you displace the knight for enough time. The point is that, okay, he has to take the pawn. I think something like rook d2.
I was thinking rook h2 and then win the f5 pawn more forcingly.
I think rook h2, he just comes back to e6.
And then it's not working.
Yeah, because he's
because he's threatening
everything with check.
Yeah,
exactly. I'm not sure why the engine gave rook d2. Obviously, I didn't see any of this during the game. Knight f4.
You want to play rook.
Rook check, right?
Rook check and then rook f6. Yeah.
And so his king is not well placed, and so this position is
just a draw.
This position is draw. Like minor piece plus 2 passed pawns is a theoretical draw against the rook. It looks good, but you always have chances to give the rook for both of the pawns. You also have ideas of giving the rook for a piece and one of the pawns, and then the resulting king and pawn endgame is drawn. Here White's issue is that the knight is pinned, and so he just can't maneuver. Something like b6, and it's always important, just keep your rook as far away as possible. Now if king c6, I can always give checks and then come back, and White just can't make progress here, amazingly.
Nice.
It's a draw.
Did you know that during the game?
Yeah, I thought if we could liquidate, I should be fine. I think I've just had the endgame before and kind of learned that way. But the thing is with pawns on the king side, you don't always get the checks from the side, so it's much more dangerous. Okay, anyway, I played rook d2 here, which is losing, but my idea was to try this rook d6 check. He puts my king on a8, plays knight e6. I'm forced to play rook d6, and then this is where he really starts missing the wins. So king c7 I thought was very clear here. Now first things first, I'm not in time to just run with my h-pawn because he takes, and I will get to queen.
Just b6.
Yeah, but he'll queen with a skewer.
It's like the final scene of Searching for Bobby Fischer.
I was just thinking that, yeah. What a sad endgame. So after king c7, I'm forced to move my rook. Then he plays b6, threatening b7. I would have to play rook b1, and then f6, and so the second pawn is too much. And white queens first, and with mate. But he didn't want to play king c7 because he's still hoping to get b6 and knight c7 in. So he plays king c5, rook d1. Apparently rook d7 was a defensive move. Rook d1 allows him to repeat the position with king b6. But he can also actually, in the game after b6, king b7, had he played f6 here, White is still winning. and we'll see why once we go through the game. In the game, he plays knight c7, which looks very good. It looks like it, but black has this resource, which is actually more common than people might imagine. But of course, I give the rook. Now the knight is in the worst square possible, and it's very important not to use this tempo, taking the knight. After the game, he confessed he missed this idea. Of course, we're in time trouble, so understandable. And what we got in the game is black is actually queening first. White is also queening, but this resulting position, white's pieces could not be worse placed.
They're just all sidelined. Yeah, the king has no shelter.
Exactly. And so, yeah, just everything is going for black here. I mean, number one, he has limited squares because he can't run into the skewer. He has no way of blocking the check. And if we trade queens at any point and I can take the knight, it's going to be a drawn endgame unless his king is on d6 ready to come to c6. Not c7, but c6, king b8, b7. So this is essentially a pretty easy draw. For example, you might try here, check, check, and nothing to do. I can trade queens, I can even take the knight in this position, and it's an easy draw. So that was it, basically. Queen c1 check, I gave this check, and we agreed to a draw.
I was hoping, you know what I was hoping for? I was hoping for king a5, and then what were you going to play here?
I assume there's a stalemate. Queen b5?
Yeah, queen b5.
Yeah,
anyway.
That's a nice one.
Yeah.
I actually didn't see it during the game. I just noticed it now, yeah. Because I was just... I was actually looking for these stalemates, but no, I would just repeat and...
Of course.
Yeah. So going back to the final key position, had he not played knight c7 here, had he started with f6, now he's one tempo ahead, because I could play h3, f7, I have to put my rook behind, and here he can play knight c7.
It seems so simple. What did you say? You missed that you didn't have to take the knight? You could just play h3.
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy to...
You just assume that
king a8 is going to be played right, especially in your calculation when you're in time trouble and just trying to calculate very quickly. You're just making these forcing moves automatically. But of course, in these kinds of endgames, anyone who's seen endgame studies, there are all kinds of insane resources that you have to watch out for. So yeah, very fortunate save.
Yeah, good job.
What can I say?
So we're both keeping clean so far. Who do you play tomorrow?
So tomorrow I'm playing, I think, another candidate master around 2200. Nice. I'm doing well in the tournament, so should be a tough fight.
And I'm playing a GM, so we can't have like a clean name for the video anymore. Like we've stopped playing the same types of players.
Right, and we stopped beating them.
Yeah. Well, I haven't stopped.
Right, yeah.
I don't know what we're gonna call this video. Fiska analysis, round 5.
I don't know. Something catchy.
Something, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll brainstorm.
All right.
Anyway, we'll see you guys in the future, probably. Bye.